Yo guys, Superior David here. Murder at Castle Nathria has been out for, just about a week now, which means next week we'll most likely be receiving a balance patch. So I thought today I'd just give my thoughts on the cards I want to see get nerfed, as well as the cards that I want to see get buffed. Yes, I definitely think we could use some buffs in the meta just to help some of the underperforming classes. So I guess with that, let's just get right into things. And we'll be starting off with the card that I want to see get nerfed the most, and that is the Vile Library. Now, this location at 2 mana I find is just very powerful. It allows Imp Warlock to apply just insane amounts of pressure just way early in the game. I don't really find that to be fun, so I would just like to see this location get nerfed to 3 mana. And I think this will slow down Imp Warlock just enough for like other decks to sort of compete with it in the early game and open up the meta a bit. Now, I'm sure that some people would also love to see like the Impending Catastrophe nerfed, but to be honest, I feel like the card, while very powerful, I think it's just fine at the moment in terms of power level, and the Vile Library is much more of the problem with Imp Warlock at the moment, just because again, it represents so much damage early in the game, and by slowing this card down, I think it will do a lot to sort of just open up the meta a bit more again. So Impending Catastrophe, I definitely got my eye on you, but you're safe for now, buddy. Now, another location I would like to see nerfed as well would be the Nightcloak Sanctum. Skeleton Mage at the moment is not the best deck in the game, but it's very powerful, and there are definitely like a few cards that I think sort of push it to be a little too annoying in my eyes, and I feel like the Nightcloak Sanctum is one of those cards. And right now, because of the 3 durability, I feel like you could be pretty lackadaisical, whatever, about when you use your freezes, and I think it gives Mage a little bit too much flexibility in that regard. So I think keep this card at 3 mana, but lower the durability to 2. So you still get some nice freezes with this card, you still get some skeletons, but I think lowering the durability will allow like other decks to sort of compete a bit better in the mid game against Mage, where like this card really excels at just slowing down again board-based decks, and I think it will still just be a good card. Now, I think these nerfs will probably slow down the meta, and with a slower meta, there's always the risk of Celestial Alignment becoming good again. I feel like there's other cards maybe you could hit with like maybe like Lady Anaconda, or maybe you make this effect like not asymmetrical, but I think they should just make it stupidly unplayable by making it cost 10 mana. People don't like this card. Nobody likes playing against it. When you do play it, you don't really feel that great because you know how it feels to be on the other side and you can't really do anything against it. And I think the time has come to just give this card like the old Yeller treatment, bring it out back, put it out of its misery, just make it horribly unplayable. It will make Standard a lot better for sure, and I have to imagine it will probably improve Wild because I feel like this card's probably very obnoxious in Wild. And as much as I love our boy Guff over here, I think it's time to give Guff a small nerf as well. I hear people complaining about Druid like every step of the way. What really enables Druid to do all the broken things at the moment is the Guff, and I think the way to nerf this card is to not make it cost more mana. I know a lot of people want this card to go from like 5 to 6 mana, and I think this kind of change will just make Druid more polarizing versus aggro and control decks, because yeah, Guff will be a lot worse versus aggro, but I don't think it will do much to impact control at all, and I think this polarization will ultimately lead to a worse meta as we've seen in the past. And so I think the best way to hit Guff would be to make it so the hero power gains you an empty mana crystal, and I think this would bring Guff down in power against aggro and control decks, and would probably make it so Druid can't play as greedy of a game. They might have to include more anti-aggro cards, and I think this would make it so some slower decks could actually like compete better against Druid, where right now it feels like Druid just gains all of this mana, and it's very hard for any like slower decks to compete against that, because when your opponent can play like double the mana you can play in a turn, they could just do more and do more of the broken stuff much earlier in the game. And so as much as I hate to see Guff get a little bit of a nerf, I feel like the time has come. He's a problem in Standard, he's a problem in Wild, he's a problem in freaking Duels. And when a card's problematic in Duels, which is a mode where like cards are just crazy powerful, I think it's probably best to just do something about him. Now, the last card I want to see nerfed is Mr. Avalanche himself, Snowfall Guardian. I think Shaman has proven to just always been able to fall back on the freeze package, which has always just been very frustrating. And I guess the change I would like to see to this card is that Snowfall Guardian also freezes himself. This would sort of retain the ability of Snowfall Guardian to, freeze the board, which I feel like that's the intended purpose of this card. But by having Snowfall Guardian freeze himself, it means he won't be able to attack the following turn, which I find is usually the most like frustrating aspect of this card, because your whole board's frozen and then you got a big old minion coming at your face next turn. And I think slowing him down in an aggressive sort of way would probably be the best way to go about this. Now, I know that a lot of people want to see the parrot get hit, and I've seen the nerf being floated out that perhaps the parrot should only recur battle cries that cost 5 or less, and I don't think this is a smart nerf. I think that would just sort of kill the parrot and everything that Blizzard was trying to accomplish with that card. Like, they very clearly designed this card to be able to recur powerful battle cries. If you make it just sort of recur like dinky, weak battle cries, it just becomes a boring card that's not fun and I think just bad. And so personally, I'd much rather see Snowfall Guardian take the hit here, and by nerfing it so it also freezes itself, I think lessens the aggressiveness of it while still retaining like the AoE freeze effect, which is sort of like the reason why Blizzard made this card in the first place. Now moving on to the buffs I want to see, I've played a lot of Relic Demon Hunter, and the archetype is a lot of fun, but I think it's no secret that it could definitely use some help. It's not, Demon Hunter is just like the worst it's ever been, so I definitely love to see the Relic package buffed a bit, starting with the Relic Vault. Just make this location cost 2. It's very hard to find a way to weave this card into your curve because at 3 mana it's very expensive, and so by making it 2 mana, I think it'll be easier to weave into your curve, and then you can start buffing the power of your relics a lot faster. And then on top of that, I'd also like to see the relics get buffed a bit. You just can't touch Relic of Dimensions because I think if you make this card like any cheaper, it will probably end up being broken because of mana cheating and whatnot. So I wouldn't mind them like maybe buffing Relic of Extinction, making it cost like 1 mana, or you can make Relic of Phantasms cost 2 mana. But if they really want to push the power level, I think you could even give these Phantasms Rush. It just feels weird that like they don't have Rush because they're just so easy to ignore now in the early game, and then in the late game they just feel a bit too slow. But yeah, I think this would be probably my ideal buffing of the relics. And again, I would just say don't touch Relic of Dimensions because the mana cheating on this could get really scary really fast. And then another class that could definitely use some buffs is Paladin, and I think it could use buffs in a couple of regards, with the first being the Elitist Snob. When playing Pure Paladin, I've found that you're really losing out on a lot of the cards that generate you tempo by going Pure, so I think you gotta make this Elitist Snob better, or else it's just not worth it to go Pure Paladin. And you know, I wouldn't mind like either making it cost 4 mana, or potentially making it like a 4/5 or 4/4, just some way that it can impact the board better. And then for the other change I'd like to see the Paladin would be to make the legendary invitations from the Countess just 1 mana. Let's really push the power level of Pure Paladin, because having played this deck, it feels like Pure Paladin just can't close out games even if you get the Countess down. I think it would make the Countess just feel better to play because you could play her like in the later turns and potentially like weave an invitation down on the same turn you play her. But at the same time, I think Paladin overall just struggles from like a lack of direction at the moment. It feels like, as always, it was given like just a bunch of different synergies to try and help it out this expansion, and I don't think any of them really landed. So I think long term, Paladin's just going to need better cards that actually like push some of the archetypes more fully. And finally, we got good old Warrior, which I think is also just in desperate need of buffs, because none of this enraged stuff has really stuck this expansion, and I don't know how you could really make this stuff any better, because at the end of the day, this deck will never be able to compete with like Imp Warlock or like an aggressive Demon Hunter deck. I feel like the more aggressive enraged stuff with Warrior right now is just not good enough. Instead, with Warrior, I would like to just see some of the previous nerfs on Warrior reverted, like the From the Depths. You know, I feel like we can make this 3 mana again, just because the power level of the game has definitely increased with the new expansion. Maybe Nelly. I know Nelly was one that was very controversial because I think in its original state, it was very unfun, but maybe they could make the Pirates cost 2 less just to make Nelly actually playable again, because right now, like, Nelly's just, it's unfortunately trash tier. Or let's see, what else can be changed? Maybe like Shield Shatter, you could revert the nerf on this, make it deal 5 damage again. And then I guess you could even like think about unnerfing Tidal Revenant as well. I feel like just Warrior needs some serious help right now, because the nerfs to it before really just decimated the class, and even though I feel like they were necessary at the time, I think the power level has definitely increased with this new expansion, so I think it's safe to unnerf some of these Warrior cards, and at the very least, it'll give Warrior players just something to do. So there you have it. Those were my thoughts on what I think should be nerfed and buffed. Let me know if you agree or disagree with the stuff down in the comments. But anyways, guys, thank you so much for watching, and as always, like, comment, subscribe, and in the meantime, stay superior, and I'll catch you next one. Later. Get that